Hello, this is D. Sidney Potter. Appreciate you joining me. We're going to talk about swapping real estate. Some folks have asked me that, and they don't realize you can actually do that. However, more specifically, the question in front of us today: how does swapping real estate work? Wonderful. Well, sometimes in terms of swapping real estate, it's known as I buy yours, you buy mine agreement, and sometimes it's also known as a reciprocal sell agreement. A reciprocal sell agreement is essentially this. It's a simultaneous sell approach into swapping real estate. You go it the same way in terms of the normal way you'd buy a home or investment piece of property, and that you go into escrow. But you also have a near simultaneous sell approach. And there's a very important distinction between both those, and I'll tell you why. You want to have a simultaneous sell under most conditions because you'd hate to be in a situation where you're property A buyer and you've got property B buyer, and you execute by buying property B. However, property B buyer doesn't execute on buying your piece of real estate. Since most people have mortgages, you can bet dollar to donuts it's very likely that you'll have two outstanding mortgages right now. Not only your property as property A owner, but the newly acquired property, property B. There are some individuals that build up trust and faith and buy a near simultaneous. If you do a near simultaneous situation, I recommend that you make the escrow, the deposit, non-refundable, that there be some type of damages, probably not the best word to use, but some type of penalty, if you will, a light penalty associated with the buyer if they're unable to execute their deal. Maybe they don't have clean title. So stay away from those near simultaneous swamping. Keep in mind when you do swamp real estate, it's just not confined to the city you live or to the state. It could even be out of the country. However, swapping real estate is regulated, or rather comes under the umbrella of 1031, Section 1031 of the Internal Revenue Code. That's fairly important because if you swap real estate and if it isn't done properly, there's potentially tax. It's going to set off a tax event, rather, which is known as a tax consequence. So it's very important that you have a very competent escrow company. They will have in-house personnel that are typically familiar with executing a proper swap. Also, and I'm about to give you 3 different websites to go to in just the next minute or two. It doesn't have to be like-kind real estate, especially if this is a primary piece of home. Like-kind means investment properties. Let's say we're just talking about I'm swapping my home for this home. I'm moving out of Los Angeles and I'd like to find a nice vacation home lakeside in Vermont, for example. The great deal about swapping real estate is it could either be dollar for dollar or it could be for a not dollar for dollar, meaning that someone has a home that's worth about $500,000 and you sell their home for about $500,000. If there's a differential, let's say there's a $50,000 differential, this individual property B owner is $450,000. Well, when you cash out the $500,000 deal and you pay off that loan, usually there's equity, and that's the upside about swapping real estate. You're able to use the equity in your home usually as a down payment on the piece of property that you're going to swap for. Now, the more interesting aspect about swapping real estate is you have those dollar for dollar swappers. You also have not dollar for dollar swappers. I consider this inherently more interesting. As a former commercial real estate broker in Los Angeles, I work with 1031 exchangers that had personal attachments sometimes to their commercial piece of real estate. So you want to know the motivation behind it. And that's what makes swapping so interesting, especially when you have a not dollar for dollar deal. And that is the buyer or the seller of his piece of property, the swappee, wants to get out of this home because let's say there's a bad relationship there. There was a job loss, there was a divorce, there was a death. It could be a variety of reasons where it makes an opportune moment for the other side on that transaction, for the other party on the side of that transaction. So that's why you feel if you're able to meet your reciprocal needs, that's why they call them reciprocal sells, that these can sometimes work. Very quickly, 3 websites. Onlinehousetrading.com. That's onlinehousetrading.com. Very user-friendly. I've been there. Go check it out. Domuswap.com. Sounds very odd, I know, but it's DOMUSWAP.com. Very good site. You can pick by state, location, property type, and see what's available. They send up, it's like an MLS, multiple listing service. You're able to see the homes, several cover photos, and also GoSwap.org. GoSwap.org. These 3 websites should get you on your way in terms of swapping. This is D. Sidney Potter. I'd like to talk to you about swapping real estate, and I think this just helped a little bit. Please let me know if you have any other questions or concerns. Good day.